Hey Wolfpack, and welcome back. It's finally Saturday, and I know you've all been waiting for more stories. And tonight, we have 3 strange cannibal encounters. With that said, whether you're sitting around a campfire, on the night shift, or even laying in bed, let my voice soothe your nightmares. I don't mean to be stereotypical, but I'm what most people would refer to as a stoner. Now, don't take that as me admitting to doing meth and all that other crazy shit. But if I was high and someone offered me some, I'd probably go for it. Luckily, that's never happened. I'm only a junior in high school, so I don't want my entire life going down the shitter right before my eyes. So, I usually just stick to the safe stuff like weed. I think anyone who has ever smoked weed can agree that getting high is the best feeling in the world, and that's why I keep doing it. Whatever, I'm getting off track. But trust me, it does come into play later. This story started on Friday of last week. It's Sunday when I'm writing this, and I'm still not sure if everything I saw was a dream or not. The day started off pretty normal. I got out of bed, got dressed in my usual attire, t-shirt, basketball shorts, and a backwards baseball cap, and headed downstairs to get some breakfast. My dad was packing up his things into his briefcase as I was walking into the kitchen. "Hey Dylan, your mom and I are gonna be out a little late tonight. Anniversary, remember? Anyways, just make sure you get home on time so you can watch your sister while we're gone. Got it?" he said quickly as he began to walk towards the door. I had completely forgotten about their anniversary, and I hated whenever I had to watch my sister alone. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister just as much as anyone should, but I was horrible at taking care of her alone, especially after a long day of school. I hid my annoyance though, and responded quickly. "Yeah, sure, have fun I guess," I said. Dad smiled and walked out the door. "Don't forget," he yelled as the door closed behind him. My mom was already on her way to school with my sister, so I was the only person left in the house. I checked the clock and saw that it was already 7:50. I grabbed a donut from the package on the counter and headed out the door, taking my backpack on the way out. I climbed into my car and headed out onto the road. I got there just in time for classes to start at 8:20. I parked my car into the large lot and jogged into the building. There were still quite a few students roaming around, so I assumed I had some time before I had to head to class. I walked past the front desk and up the stairs in the direction of my locker. Before I could take a step, I felt a cold, hard hand on my shoulder. I turned around quickly and saw my friend Max smiling at me. His shaggy, blonde hair partially covered his eyes, and I never understood how he could see. He was wearing a Hawaiian shirt with a blue t-shirt underneath and some kind of khaki shorts. His style is interesting, to say the least. "What's up, man?" he said, quietly, slurring his words a little. "Hey, Max," I responded, as I walked towards the stairs to the second floor. "Dude, you're not gonna believe what I got last night," Max said excitedly, as he ran up the stairs as fast as he could. I tried my best to keep up with him. "What is it?" I responded, intrigued. He smiled wider. "Oh, I don't think you're ready, dude." We began walking down the hallway that my locker was in, zigzagging through the students the whole time. "Cut the bullshit, Max. What is it?" I said, smiling. "Okay, but don't tell anyone about it." He stopped walking for a second, looked around, and unzipped his backpack. I looked inside and saw 3 glass bongs sitting comfortably inside the backpack. He zipped his backpack back up and kept walking. I ran up to catch him. "Holy shit, dude. Why the hell did you bring those to school?" I said quietly. I was excited to try them, but I also didn't want my best friend to get caught and get suspended. "Wanted to try them out as soon as possible. Meet me at my locker before lunch if you're not a wimp. We're gonna have a real party. See you around, Dill," he said, as he sprinted away happily, probably looking for more people to invite to the party. "No running in the halls, Mr. Horn," the vice principal yelled. "Screw off, Horn," Max screamed back and Mr. Horn didn't care enough to chase after him. I laughed hysterically as he ran away, and Mr. Horn didn't seem to like this. He walked up to me angrily and said, "Wipe that smirk off your face. Get to class." He walked away quickly, heading to God knows where. I stopped laughing and sighed, happy that I hadn't gotten a detention. Despite being a pretty big stoner and being friends with a lot of idiots, I generally got pretty good grades and didn't get in trouble too often. So close calls like this always makes me nervous. We had happened to stop right in front of my locker, so I grabbed the books I needed and headed to my first class, World History. When I sat down in my seat, I noticed that my teacher, Mrs. Watson, seemed surprisingly happy. She was a usually pretty boring teacher, so seeing her smiling like this was kind of strange. I just passed it off as nothing though, and soon got lost in conversation with my classmates. After a few minutes, the PA system turned on, and we listened in for our morning announcements. Our principal, Mrs. Lundell, also seemed very happy and bubbly on the announcements. No one else in my class seemed to notice, so I just ignored it. "Good morning, students of Parkview South High School. I hope you're having a great Friday. Today is January 25th, 2019. As you all probably know, today is National Consumption Day." Mrs. Lundell seemed extra excited when saying this, and Mrs. Watson smiled wider at the announcement. Most of the people in my class were confused and didn't know what that meant, but everyone just assumed it was one of those dumb holidays that no one celebrates except for 40-year-old moms on Facebook, like National Chocolate Day and National Cute Dogs Day. Stupid stuff like that. The announcements continued. "In celebration of this holiday, our lunch ladies will be serving specially made hamburgers in the cafeteria today." Everyone in the class seemed excited, but I didn't care, since I had no other plans for lunch. As I was looking around at people smiling, I swear I saw Mrs. Watson drooling for a second, but it seemed to go away as soon as I blinked. I thought I was just imagining things and ignored it. The announcements continued as normal, and then we started class. Nothing was really out of the ordinary in this class other than the fact that Mrs. Watson was so excited the whole time. Other than that, though, the class was the typical bore fest it usually was. The rest of the classes were similar, and I had trouble staying awake in most of them. The only interesting thing about all of them was the fact that the teacher was acting like how Mrs. Watson acted, excited and happy beyond belief. It was really weird for me, and started to kinda creep me out. I could tell I wasn't the only one who noticed it, but most of my classmates had just tried to ignore it at this point, so I followed their lead. My last class before lunch was PE. We were playing basketball like we usually did, and I didn't feel like playing today. Me and a few friends decided to hide under the bleachers after class had started. While we were under there, I asked my buddy Andrew if Max had approached him with the party offer, and he told me that Max had asked over 30 people about it. I had hoped that wasn't true, because at least one of those people would snitch if anything bad were to happen. I told him he better keep it a secret, and Andrew assured me that he wouldn't snitch. I looked him straight in the eyes, past the glasses, and I could tell he was telling the truth. A few minutes later, after the lunch bell rang, and a few friends and I headed over to Max's locker. When we arrived, Max was waiting eagerly for us. "Right this way, gentlemen," Max said, doing his best as a British accent as he led us all into the bathroom. "Shut up, Max," my friend Jake said as we all walked in. There were 6 of us in there, including myself. The others were Max, Andrew, Jake, and 2 of our other friends, Will and Quentin. We all found a place to either sit or stand, and waited for Max to walk back in. "Are you guys ready for the greatest experience of your life?" Max said, smiling sinisterly. "Yeah, man, I'm ready," Quentin yelled excitedly. Quentin was a sophomore and had never tried anything like this before, because we had never let him. I guess Max thought he was ready now, and Q seemed pretty stoked. "Calm yourself, Q, it's just weed," Will said, laughing. Max slowly pulled out the bongs and started setting them up. "Have any of you, other than Max, ever even smoked a bong before?" I asked, looking around the room. The boys all stared at me blankly until finally, Andrew spoke up and said that he had once. "Okay, well, for the rest of you, get ready for the greatest moment of your life," I said happily while closing my eyes. Q's eyes got real wide, and everyone else laughed. Eventually, after a little while, Max pulled out the bongs again. "Who wants to go first?" he asked. Q, Andrew, and I all got up and ready to take the hit. Max handed us lighters, and we put our mouths up to the top of the bongs. I took a deep breath and lit the lighter. Let me just tell you, this hit was unlike anything I had ever felt before. I don't know what Max had done with the weed, but I was immediately higher than I'd ever been in my entire life. I sucked up as much smoke as possible, inhaled, and then blew it back out. I looked over at Q and Andrew, but they both seemed just as surprised as me. Andrew began coughing, and Q just stood there wide-eyed. I blew out the smoke from my lungs and coughed a little bit. "Woo!" I screamed after I finished coughing. "That was frickin' amazing, Max. Like, really good shit," I said, slurring my words. After all three of us had had a hit, the rest of the group began to try theirs, and they reacted similarly. After a few moments, the bathroom was filled with smoke, and we were all stoned out of our minds. "How does it feel?" Max asked happily. "Damn, man, this shit is insane," Will responded. "It feels like I'm in heaven," Q said quietly. We all laughed, and I got up to take another hit. "Dill's going for another one," Andrew screamed while laughing. I lit the lighter and took the biggest hit I had ever taken in my entire life. I immediately began coughing and felt sick. "I gotta go to the bathroom real quick," I said, quickly as I ran into one of the stalls and locked the door. I puked into the toilet and pulled myself onto the seat and sat down. I could hear everyone else outside laughing at me. Suddenly, I got super tired, and I forgot about everything else going on around me. Before I knew it, I was knocked out cold. I woke up, my body sprawled out in the dirty bathroom stall. I felt disgusting and my entire body was covered in sweat. My body smelled worse than the bathroom itself, and my vision was very blurry. I sat upright and rubbed my eyes to try to see my surroundings better. The lights of the bathroom were off, and it was almost pitch black in there. I shoved the stall door open and stumbled out, my backpack barely hanging on to my back. My body was sore from the strange position that I had been sleeping in, and my legs felt as though they were broken. I stood for a few seconds, slowly remembering what had happened. It took a little while, but I began to piece together the events leading up to this with Max and the bongs and everything else that had happened in the day. I looked around the room, admiring the mess we caused during our stoner party. I felt like shit, and wondered why my friends had just left me in there. Maybe they forgot, or didn't want to disturb me. It didn't matter now. What mattered now was getting out of here and getting home. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and checked the time. 2:13 a.m. I had slept through the entire day. I quickly began limping my way through the room and stumbled out into the hall. It too was dark and completely abandoned. There was trash and paper all over the place, but I just ignored it. I walked through the halls, staying quiet just in case if there was an overnight janitor or security guard. I hadn't seen anything, so I began to feel safer. As I made my way through the empty, maze-like halls, I began to hear music coming from somewhere in the building. I continued making my way to the entrance, and the music continued getting louder. It seemed to be some kind of 20s ballroom type of music or something. I'm not a music junkie, so I could be wrong about this. I finally made it to the lobby, and was about to walk out when I saw lights coming from the gymnasium near the cafeteria. I decided that I might as well check it out since I was really curious what was going on. This was a huge mistake. I slowly walked down the hall towards the cafeteria and stayed close to the wall so no one in there could see me. I walked inside and saw no one in there, so I stepped in. When I walked through the cafeteria towards the gym, I saw that there were massive tables set up, with very fancy plates and silverware on them. Maybe there was a dinner I didn't know about. Then again, it's 2 in the morning, so that possibility was out of the question. I inched my way closer to the gym when the music became completely clear and the lights were very visible to me. I ran up to the entrance and quickly, without thinking, climbed under the bleachers to watch what was happening. I looked around and saw 100 people dressed very nice dancing around the gymnasium. It seemed to be some kind of ball. This place was decorated completely differently to how it looked earlier that day, and I was amazed that they were able to change it so much, so quickly. There were banners and streamers lining the walls and ceilings, and there were multiple chandeliers hanging from the ceiling as well, illuminating the dancers on the ground below. The building didn't even look like the gym anymore. I watched in disbelief as the men and women danced their hearts out to the formal music, until eventually, a tall man wearing a red suit stepped onto the stage and began speaking into the microphone. "Attention, attention everyone," he said nicely. I squinted my eyes to try and get a better look, and I gasped when my eyes finally focused. It was Mr. Horn, our vice principal. What the hell was he doing up there? I tried my best to stay quiet and watch. "I hope you all have been enjoying our beautiful Consumption Day ball," he said, smiling. Consumption Day? That's what they had mentioned on the announcements earlier. I was very confused now, and I won't lie, a little scared. The entire room began clapping. "Once again, I'd like to thank the beautiful Mrs. Lundell for so graciously decorating our banquet today, and I'd also like to thank the wonderful families who sponsor our monthly Consumption Day events. They should all be standing here in the front row. Let's give them a big round of applause." The room erupted in cheers and applause once again. I was surprised when he said that these happen monthly. How has no one ever noticed these when they happen so often? "Now, we have been enjoying the accommodations here for quite some time now, but I think it's finally time for the main event," he said excitedly. Everyone in the audience was smiling, and I heard some laughter. "I'm sure you're all eager to see who our subjects for tonight's banquet are, so here they are. Mr. Wilson, bring them out." Mr. Horn yelled excitedly as the crowd exploded with more cheers and screams. Mr. Wilson was my gym teacher, and I used to really like him, but my opinion has greatly changed now. He slowly walked onto the stage carrying a long chain. Following him were 3 students who had their hands and feet shackled and were stumbling onto the stage. The crowd got louder with cheers and applause. The kids on stage looked terrified, and I tried my best to get a better look at them. I could tell that there were 2 girls and 1 guy, but I couldn't get a good look at their faces. I was shocked when I focused because I recognized all 3 of them as some of my classmates. I had recognized the first girl from my history class, and the other 2 just had faces that I wasn't sure I had seen before. I had seen that girl in class just that day. They were dressed in casual clothing, but it was very dirty and torn, presumably from all the struggling and fighting they did with the teachers. I could see that the girls were crying, and the guy was trying his best to hide his fear. "These 3 fine students have been hand-selected by our fine staff to be sacrificed for our own pleasure. For you new members in the audience, remember the rules we taught you at the beginning. To keep your youth, you must eat the meat of someone who is 17 or younger." That's when the truth finally hit me. This wasn't just a party for some made-up holiday. They were killing these kids and eating them so they could look young forever. This was a sacrifice. So who is ready for the slaughter? Mr. Wilson asked loudly. The crowd screamed louder than every other time before, and it seemed more like a rock concert now than a formal banquet. Mr. Wilson suddenly pulled out a large knife and lunged it deep into the first girl's abdomen. I gasped and shot my hand over my mouth. I had never seen anything like that before, and the sight of the blood pouring out of her stomach made me want to faint again. The girl screamed with all her might, and that sound is still planted permanently in my mind. I was frozen with fear during this and watched as the other 2 kids were chloroformed and passed out on stage. I guess they wanted to save the butchering of the other kids for later. Mr. Wilson continued stabbing at the girl until finally, all that was left was a pile of blood and guts. I was horrified, and I didn't come back to my senses until Mr. Horn walked back up to the microphone. "Now that our first meal is ready to be cooked, I'd like to ask everyone to please move into the cafeteria. We will return here after a while to continue our slaughtering." Slowly, the people began to make their way out of the gym, and I watched as Mr. Wilson removed the shackles from the 3 students and placed the blood and guts into a large tub and carried it into the cafeteria. The people leaving were all smiling wide and were obviously very excited for what was to come. I guess I hadn't noticed how young all of my teachers looked for their age, and now that I was looking at all of the other adults, they all looked young too. After everyone had left, all that was left were the 2 kids on stage and me under the bleachers. I waited a few minutes just to make sure that the coast was clear and to completely come to my senses before crawling out. Finally, I stepped out from under and looked in the doorway of the cafeteria. Everyone was seated at the tables, and I guess they have some masterful chefs there because already there were some men in tuxedos bringing out beautiful steaks for the guests. I watched as they gnaw into them like wild animals, and I saw the blood oozing out of their mouths. Some of them were even using their hands and ripping the steak apart piece by piece. I knew I had to get out of there fast before they came back into the gym. I looked around and spotted an emergency exit, but sadly, it was locked. There were no exits in the gym that were open, so I would have to face the crowd for real. Before I stepped out, I remembered the kids on the stage. I couldn't just leave them there. I ran over to the stage and started shaking the kids, trying to wake them up. Guys, wake up! I said, quietly. They were still fast asleep though. Eventually, I started slapping them and finally, they both started to come to. The guy sat up first. What happened? He asked. Where did everyone go? The girl asked immediately after. Who the hell are you? The boy said suddenly, backing away quickly. Hey, calm down. I'm here to help you. I'm not with them. I'm a student here. I recognize you guys. I think I've seen you around before. My name's Dylan. They looked at me confused. Thank God. We thought we were dead meat man. Legit. I'm Sam, he said, relieved. The girl spoke next. Yeah, I'm Bridget. This is insane. Did they really kill Katie? She asked, tearing up a bit. The other girl? Yeah, definitely. I was hiding under those bleachers when it happened. They stabbed her and then knocked you guys out. Sorry about it, I whispered sympathetically. It's okay, but how are we supposed to get out of here? There's people all over the place, Bridget said loudly. Sam put a finger over his lips to tell her to quiet. Sorry, she whispered. I say we hide under the bleachers until the people come back in. When they do and notice that you guys are gone, we make a run for it, I said, staring intently at them. Great idea if you want to get killed. They can catch us easily. We have a better bet just sneaking out, Sam said. Bridget nodded. I agree. We can use the pillars on the side and the trash cans to hide from them until we get to the hallway, she exclaimed. All right, let's do that then, I said nervously. We quietly walked towards the doorway. I watched as the guests continued to bury their faces in the steak. They all seemed distracted, so we saw this as a good opportunity to run. I pointed to one of the pillars and we all ran. We were quiet, and all 3 of us hid behind the pillar, watching the people devour their meals. Sam quickly ran ahead and hid behind a trash can. I motioned for him to stop at first, but stopped when I realized he made it. Bridget and I continued the simple path by running from pillar to pillar. We were almost to the hallway when suddenly the unthinkable happened. Slam! Bridget had tripped on a shoelace and crashed into the ground. Every guest in the room turned to look and immediately knew what was going on. They all smiled sinisterly, looking at us as we were fresh meat. We looked like deer in headlights. Suddenly, they all got up and started yelling, Get the subjects! We can use the other boy too! How did they get out? All of these sentences were mixed together in a flurry of screams. As soon as Bridget fell, I had screamed run, before helping her up and catching up with Sam. We sprinted as fast as we could towards the exit with the large crowd chasing behind us. We made it to the front entrance and shoved open the front doors. We slammed the doors closed and I grabbed a pipe off the ground and lodged it in between the door handles, locking it. The crowd was stopped, but began banging on the doors to open them. Sam stopped and began to sigh, and I looked at him very confused. What are you doing? Keep running! I screamed at him as the 3 of us sprinted away from the doors. My car is parked over here, just follow me. I yelled loudly. We sprinted through the parking lot as fast as we possibly could, and I jumped into the driver's seat of my car. Sam humped in next to me, and Bridget jumped in back. "Go! Go! Go!" Bridget screamed. I started the car and swerved out of the parking space. I looked over at the school and saw that the doors had been busted open. The crowd began running towards our car, but I was able to speed my way out of the lot before the crowd could catch us. I drove as fast as I possibly could out of that lot and watched as the crowd slowed down and eventually stopped running. "We're safe now, guys. We made it," I said with a smile on my face. This whole experience was so surreal for me, and I still don't know if I imagined the whole thing. We headed to the police station immediately after this happened. They took our claim seriously, but when they arrived at the school a few hours later, they found nothing out of the ordinary. I still don't know how the teachers were able to clean up so much in such a quick amount of time. The cops said that they could start an investigation, but I don't think it will turn up anything. I got Sam and Bridget's contact info, and we've been talking a lot this weekend about what happened and trying to figure out how to fix it. We still don't really know. They both told me that they convinced their parents to send them to different schools because they are in serious danger at Parkview, but I don't think I could ever convince my parents of that. Speaking of parents, when I got home, they were both super pissed at me for ditching on my sister, but I made the excuse that I got sick and crashed at a friend's house. Considering how sweaty and dirty I was, they believed me and only grounded me for a week. I didn't want to tell them what happened, because I know they would just say I'm crazy. I'm pretty sure none of the teachers there saw my face because I haven't heard anything about the situation yet. It's Sunday night right now, and I don't know if I should go to school tomorrow. I don't want to go in case they know I was there on Friday, but if I don't go, then that'll make me seem more suspicious for the teachers. I'm really in a dilemma here, and I'm not sure what I should do now. I'm posting this story here in hopes that maybe I'm not the only one who has experienced something like this, and maybe there's someone out there who can help me. All I know is that I'm never smoking at school ever again. All the friends I've ever made have been kinda weird. They take interest in things that most people really shouldn't. One of my best friends, Nick, is practically obsessed with school shootings. Another friend, Amber, also takes an interest in school shootings as well, but she's more violent than Nick and will hate someone the second they do something to anger her. They don't really matter to the story, but they're friends with the friend the story's about. Her name is Lindsay. Lindsay likes cannibalism. She likes the idea of it, and she likes the idea of being eaten. Well, at least she says she does. I never thought that she would ever try to act upon it. She's the type of person to say something like that to seem quirky, but never actually mean it. This year, in the beginning of a school year, we were assigned a project in science. The teacher said we could do it on literally anything we wanted. It didn't even need to be school appropriate. Of course, however, most of the other people did things like video games, homework, or pets. We were able to work in groups. Lindsay wanted to work with me and a few other friends in the class. The project we did was why humans have negative reactions to things not normal. Lindsay suggested we do cannibalism. The group agreed. We thought it was funny at the time. The group ended up having to do more examples, such as incest, bestiality, and polygamy. Lindsay suggested all of them except incest. That was suggested by the girl who did the most work on it. She actually likes it too. Like I said, my friends are weird. Well, anyway, before we had kinda broken up to do each example, we were going to all do cannibalism. We used the Chromebooks given to us by the school to do research. We looked on Wikipedia and other various websites. We looked at stories about actual reports of it happening. Some due to drugs like bath salts, and other for more romantic reasons. Lindsay found a website called Cannibal. It was basically an online chat for cannibals to find willing people to eat. You put in a username and were connected to the chat. You can't go back too far in the chat. I think it deletes. The chat that was showing up didn't seem serious. It could have been, but it didn't seem like it at the time. The whole group joined. We named ourselves Student, then a number. Lindsay was 1, the incest girl was 2, I was 3, and another member was 4. Us 4 were on the chat, asking for info on our project. You're able to see who's active, but at the time, no one was. We got off the website and did other research. The next day, we went back on. The other members were feeling pretty weird about this at the time. Lindsay seemed to enjoy it. Someone had replied. They asked, "What do you want to know?" Student 1, or Lindsay, said, "How do they taste? Is it hard to kill them? What type of people taste better?" Those kinds of questions. The other person wasn't active, and I don't think they replied. You don't need an account to enter, just a username. So, some of the members, including me, thought it was just Lindsay messaging herself. I was called to the principal's office during French class. The school didn't think it was appropriate to go in the chat, so we stopped. Well, I thought we did. I got curious, so I decided to get on again on my phone this time. Again, using the username, Student3. I saw that Student 1 had been chatting. She wasn't active at the time. No one was. The chat was talking about how Student 1 was willing to meet up with someone and give them her leg. She told her where we lived. Like, the state, I mean. Not even the city or anything. I asked her the next day, in science, and she said she only said it to get more info for the project. I believed her, but I don't know why I did. We finished the project and got somewhere in the high 80s. Pretty good considering how much we had fooled around during the project. A week after the project ended and we had turned it in, Lindsay didn't come back to school, but this was normal for her. She was either sick or at therapy. A few days later, and she still wasn't in school. Her mother was never the best, often not caring about her and yelling constantly. We began to fear that her mother did something. I went on to the chat again. Student 1 has been speaking. There isn't a way to tell when the chats are sent, so I don't know if it was recent or before she had been missing school. It was talking more about meeting up. About 2 days later, my mom told me about a girl who went missing from my school. It was Lindsay. Her older sister had finally reported a missing person, and it wasn't her mother. I kept a close eye on the chat. I was certain that the reason of her missing was due to this. Some of the chat Student 1 sent was talking about how the person could take and eat her right leg. A week later, and a week of checking in the chat constantly, Lindsay was found. She seemed like she collapsed near a cafe. She was found by the owner of it. It seemed like she had been tortured and not fed. She had tear streaks coming from her eyes and she seemed exhausted. The police report came on the news. It said that she had run away from a kidnapper. Her right hip and ankle were broken. I was freaked out. I couldn't tell the police because they would have investigated and possibly find that my 2 friends were obsessed with school shooters. I didn't want to get them in trouble. I checked the chat again, and the other person had sent, "Come back." I need new friends. So, how do you like the book, George? I stared down at the brightly colored title. The cover looked professional enough. A devilish red figure grinning happily while wearing a white apron and glimmering chef's hat. The tall creature seemed very pleased as he readied himself to plop a human head and a cup of garlic into a nearly overflowing pot in the center of a regular everyday kitchen. The Devil's 3 Rules for Cooking People. My girlfriend began to laugh as I held the book up awkwardly so that my family members could get a glance at the gag gift. "It's lovely," I said, rolling my eyes. Looking around, I could tell my father got a kick out of it, while my mother didn't seem too thrilled. She had taken her normal dose of Valium an hour or so earlier. She was sort of there, but not. "What a disturbing title," she said, not to anyone in particular. Before I could put it back down among my other birthday presents, my girlfriend Bella continued, "Aren't you going to open it? I've been waiting all week to read what's inside." I frowned. It was my dad's turn to chime in next. "Aw, come on and read it then. What's the first rule?" Picking the book back up, I casually tried to open it without success. Strange, the pages wouldn't even budge. After a few moments, I noticed the curious words that looked to be carved into the back cover. Well, I mean obviously they weren't carved. They only gave off that odd appearance as if the same red devil from the cover had sharpened his claws to perfect points and had taken the time out of his busy day to engrave the book himself. This is what the words said. To open the book, you must say the magic words. I read aloud. My dad chuckled. Magic words. Probably something like, I give you the soul of myself and my family. The book unlocked. Are you serious? I said. Dad, what the hell were you thinking? Watch your mouth, my mother said blankly, her volume high, stopping her from realizing the shit that he had just gotten our entire family into. What does the book say, George? My dad asked, trying to hide the slightly worried look on his usually fearless 52-year-old face. I'm sure it's all part of the joke, he said, more I think to himself than the rest of us. I flipped the book to page number 1, and my jaw dropped as I began to read aloud.
Hello, Georgian family. I'm so thrilled that you've not only purchased my book, but given me your souls as well. You won't be sorry. Please, turn to the next page for recipe number 1, the devil.
Okay, Bella, this shit's not funny anymore. Where did you buy this? Tell me this is a joke. But the color was gone from her face as she checked the book for herself. Amazon, she whispered. I looked at her in disbelief as she continued. It was in my suggested. Do you just buy everything that shows up on screen? I asked. Not everything, she replied. Keep reading, my dad interrupted. So I did, almost vomiting as I flipped to the next page.
Hello, Georgian family. I thought an illustration would help as I explained the rules for turning any regular everyday Joe into a delicious treat. Rule number 1. Always hang them upside down from the ceiling 10 to 14 days before getting started with the dismemberment. It softens the meat. The devil.
I did indeed vomit then as I looked closer at the visual before me. There was a painting showing the family that lived down the street. There was Mr. Jones and his wife, daughter, and 2 sons, all hanging upside down from the ceiling of what looked like, yes, upon further examination I'm sure of it, their kitchen. Though the picture was frozen, the devil's smile seemed to be directed out of the book and towards me, while he looked to be sharpening a far too long knife in preparation. Call the police! No, a priest! I yelled, throwing the book onto the floor and trying to stand, but I couldn't. Some invisible force pushed me back down into my chair then, and I saw that my parents and girlfriend were unable to move as well. The book flew back into my hands and opened to the following page, this time showing the next stage of the cooking preparation.
Rule number 2. Always make sure you buy more pots than needed to collect the blood from them. You'd be amazed how messy it can get, and you don't want to miss collecting any of that much needed human blood. Believe me when I tell you, it tastes even better than angel blood. Your pal, the devil. Yep,
we're all going to die. Good going, Dad, I said as I looked around at my helpless family. Me? Your girlfriend is the one who bought that goddamn thing, he replied. The 2 of us looked over at Bella, who was now in a state of complete shock. It was in my suggested, she said again. On Amazon, we know. The book turned to the next page as the 4 of us watched in complete horror. We had never been this scared in our lives, and how could you blame us? The terror in our home was almost palpable, and it was a miracle that none of us had experienced a heart attack or passed out under the circumstances.
Good evening, Georgian family. This brings us to the 3rd and final rule. Rule number 3. Always induce a state of fear in your chosen meals before getting started. I've found over my storied time in existence that a good 15 to 90 minutes of terror works wonders in bringing a wholesome flavor into all recipes, except pasta. See you soon. I'll be heading over to your place after I finish up with the neighbors. I think I'll start with your girlfriend first, as I think she would go lovely with a fresh batch of gingerbread cookies. If you'd like to know my recipe, feel free to ask me when I arrive. Your source of torture for the rest of eternity, the devil.
What the hell do we do now? I asked, looking anxious towards my parents. I got us into this mess, my father said, but by God, I'm going to get us out of it. My mother rolled her eyes. I'm sorry, George, but your father can't even change a flat tire. Something tells me he's not going to be able to outsmart the devil. Her face became more serious. "Sweetheart, we're all going to die." "We need to burn it," my dad said as he looked around at the three of us. I can't tell you exactly how I somehow knew that was the wrong choice, but I did. A wave of clarity, and even perhaps wisdom, washed over me for the first time in a long while. I understood that there was only one way out of a deal with the devil, and something as cheap as burning the book wasn't going to get us out of such a biblical circumstance. "We have to pray," I whispered, and no one paid attention. My father and the rest of them focusing all their energy to try to move their bodies again. "If I just get out of this goddamn The spell broke. My girlfriend Bella and my father standing up together. "Light the fireplace, George," my father said. "Do it," he continued. I rose from my own chair and tried to light the pilot. Before I could even process what was happening, some invisible force pulled Bella into the kitchen, the decorative old wooden door closing behind her as she screamed, "Bella!" I could hear the sharpening of knives. I slammed up against the door, trying desperately to make my way inside the kitchen. Maybe it was my imagination, but I swear I could hear the devil whistling cheerfully as the sound of metal on metal grew louder. Slamming into the door harder and harder, I had to get to her before it was too late. "Hold on!" And then it was over. The house turning quiet again. The only sound existing was something else. The powerful turning of pages as they crumpled and popped and crackled in the now roaring fire. My father stood directly in front of the fireplace, his dark eyes watching carefully. "It's over, George." The kitchen door opened easily enough then, and I found Bella alive, but hanging from the ceiling, just like the book had said. There was the biggest pot I had ever seen placed directly below her, and a shimmering 3-foot-long knife sat precariously balanced at the very edge of the kitchen counter. "Hold on, babe," I whispered. I got her down after a few minutes with the help of my mother and father, and then the rest of what happened is, well, a blur. We never called the police, or a priest, or anything. We must have known where that crazy road would have taken us. Like I said, my memory isn't too great about what followed. All I know is that we burned the book, and we survived. I'm not even sure how much time has passed since. All I can tell you is the four of us are sitting together again in the living room, and I'm preparing to open my first birthday present. I wonder what it is. My mother must have taken her Valium again, because she looks even more faded and distant than usual, but then again, so do my father and girlfriend. And why is it so hot in here? Thanks for watching, Wolfpack. If you want to submit your story, my email and subreddit will be in the description below. And also, if you're not subscribed, please do if you want. And don't forget to like and comment as well. Have beautiful nightmares. And I will see you next time.